What happened next left Elon Musk completely speechless and scrambling to delete tweets. The world's richest man thought he could intimidate Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett with legal threats and his army of online followers. But when her lawyer fired back with a response that exposed Musk's darkest secrets, the Tesla CEO went from threatening lawsuits to literally begging for mercy on X. This isn't just another Twitter drama. This is a moment when someone finally called Elon Musk bluff, and what came next will shock you. Before we dive into this explosive story, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss the latest political bombshells that are reshaping America. The notification came at 3:47 a.m. on a cold Tuesday morning in February. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was sound asleep in her Washington, D.C. apartment when her phone buzzed with an alert that would change everything. The screen lit up her dark bedroom with a Twitter notification that made her heart race. Elon Musk, the man who owns X, Tesla, and SpaceX, had just posted a tweet that sent shockwaves through the political world. But this wasn't just any late-night Musk rant. This was a calculated attack that had been planned for weeks. Sources inside X would later reveal that Musk had been tracking Crockett's congressional activities, monitoring her social media engagement, and building a file on her personal life. What started as casual monitoring had turned into an obsession when her Digital Accountability Act gained momentum in Congress. Jasmine Crockett thinks she can attack free speech and get away with it. Time to show this corrupt politician what real consequences look like. My lawyers are already preparing. #justices coming #free speech matters. The tweet came with a video compilation of Crockett's recent congressional hearings, edited to make her look aggressive and out of control. Within minutes, Musk's 180 million followers began sharing it like wildfire. The hashtags #CrockettCorruption and #Elon versus Jasmine started trending worldwide. But Musk wasn't done. 20 minutes later, another tweet appeared. Some people think government positions make them untouchable. Wrong. I have receipts. Jasmine Crockett's financial records tell a very different story than her public image. Stay tuned. The threat was clear. Elon Musk, worth over $240 billion, was coming for a congresswoman who had dared to question his influence on American democracy. What he didn't know was that Jasmine Crockett had been preparing for this moment for months. To understand why this confrontation exploded the way it did, you need to know the players and what brought them to this moment. At 43 years old, Jasmine Crockett represents Texas's 30th congressional district and has built a reputation as one of the most fearless voices in Congress. A former civil rights lawyer from Dallas, she's never backed down from a fight, whether it was taking on corporate giants in the courtroom or challenging corruption in the halls of power. Crockett made national headlines when she grilled tech CEOs during congressional hearings, asking the tough questions other politicians were afraid to ask. She's particularly focused on how social media platforms spread misinformation and influence elections. Her background as a civil rights attorney taught her that power without accountability is dangerous, and she saw Elon Musk as the perfect example. 3 weeks before Musk's late-night Twitter attack, Crockett had introduced the Digital Accountability Act, a bill designed to hold social media platforms responsible for election misinformation. The legislation was more comprehensive than anything Congress had previously considered. It included provisions for algorithm transparency, requirements for fact-checking political advertisements, and most controversially, personal liability for platform owners who knowingly allowed misinformation to spread. During the press conference announcing the bill, Crockett had delivered what would become the quote that triggered Musk's obsession. Standing at the Capitol steps with a dozen other lawmakers behind her, she looked directly into the cameras and said, "When one person controls the digital town square and 180 million followers, that's not free speech. That's unchecked power that threatens democracy itself." The comment was carefully crafted. Crockett's background as a civil rights lawyer had taught her that legal battles were won with precise language, and she knew exactly who she was targeting. The comment went viral, but not in the way Crockett expected. Musk supporters flooded her social media with harassment. Death threats filled her inbox. But instead of backing down, she doubled down, calling for congressional investigations into X's role in spreading political misinformation. Elon Musk built his empire on being untouchable. From Tesla to SpaceX to his $44 billion purchase of Twitter, now X, he's used to getting his way. At 52, he's become more than just a businessman. He's a cultural force who can move markets with a single tweet and destroy reputations with a few keystrokes. Since buying Twitter, Musk has positioned himself as a champion of free speech. But critics argue he's created a platform where misinformation thrives and his personal vendettas play out in public. He's used his platform to attack politicians, journalists, and anyone who challenges his narrative. When Crockett introduced her Digital Accountability Act, Musk saw it as a direct threat to his empire. He'd already used X to influence elections and political debates. The idea that Congress might actually regulate his platform was unthinkable. But Musk's approach to dealing with critics had always been the same. Overwhelm them with legal threats, unleash his massive following for harassment campaigns, and use his wealth to make problems disappear. It had worked against journalists, former employees, and even some politicians. What he didn't realize was that Jasmine Crockett wasn't like his previous targets. This wasn't just a personal feud between a politician and a billionaire. This was about something much bigger. Whether America's democratic institutions could stand up to unchecked corporate power in the digital age. The timing of this confrontation was crucial. America was heading into another election cycle, and concerns about social media manipulation were at an all-time high. Recent studies had shown that just 5 tech companies controlled over 90% of digital political advertising, giving them unprecedented influence over electoral outcomes. Crockett represented the voice of millions of Americans who felt powerless against tech giants who seemed to operate by their own rules. Her Digital Accountability Act wasn't just about regulating social media. It was about proving that no one, not even the world's richest man, was above the law. The bill had already gained support from unexpected quarters, including some Republican lawmakers concerned about big tech's growing influence over conservative voices. Musk represented the new tech aristocracy, billionaires who believed their wealth gave them the right to shape public discourse and political outcomes. His attack on Crockett was designed to send a message: challenge me and I'll destroy you. The battle lines were drawn. A civil rights lawyer turned congresswoman with a small but fierce legal team versus the world's richest man with unlimited resources and a massive platform. On the surface, it seemed like an impossible fight. But Jasmine Crockett had something Musk didn't expect: a lawyer who'd been waiting for this moment for 20 years. The morning after Musk's threatening tweets, Washington, D.C. woke up to chaos. Every major news outlet was covering the story. Musk declares war on Congress, read the Washington Post headline. CNN's breaking news banner simply said, "Billionaire versus lawmaker, the battle for America's soul." Crockett's phone had been ringing nonstop since 4 a.m. Her staff was fielding calls from reporters, fellow congressmen offering support, and security experts warning about the online harassment campaign that was already building steam. By 7 a.m., hashtag Crockett corruption was the #1 trending topic on X worldwide. Musk's followers had created thousands of memes mocking Crockett, doctored images making her look corrupt, and conspiracy theories about her finances. The harassment was so intense that Capitol Police had to increase security around her office. But the real escalation came at 9:15 a.m. when Musk posted a follow-up that crossed every line. Jasmine Crockett thinks she can hide behind her government position. My team has found some very interesting connections between her civil rights work and some questionable clients. Financial records don't lie. Neither do offshore accounts. More details coming soon. Hashtag corruption exposed. The tweet was a direct threat. Musk was claiming he had evidence of financial corruption. Offshore accounts, questionable clients. Even if it was completely false, the damage to Crockett's reputation could be devastating. Within an hour, the story had exploded across every news platform. Fox News was already running segments questioning Crockett's finances. MSNBC was calling it billionaire intimidation tactics. Even international news outlets were covering the unprecedented attack of a tech mogul going after a sitting congresswoman. Crockett's political opponents smelled blood in the water. Republican Congressman Jim Jordan tweeted, "If Elon Musk has evidence of corruption, Congress needs to see it immediately. No politician should be above investigation. Other Republican leaders began calling for ethics investigations based purely on Musk's unsubstantiated claims. The pressure was immense. Crockett's own Democratic colleagues were starting to distance themselves. Some privately suggested she should apologize to Musk and withdraw the Digital Accountability Act to make this go away. The message was clear. You can't fight someone with Musk's resources and platform. But at 11:30 a.m., something unexpected happened that would change the entire trajectory of this battle. Crockett walked into her office and found her chief of staff talking urgently on the phone, her face pale with concern. The harassment campaign had reached levels that were making even seasoned Washington staffers nervous. Death threats were pouring in every few minutes. Social media platforms were struggling to keep up with the flood of fake accounts spreading doctored images and conspiracy theories about Crockett. "She's here," the aide said into the receiver, relief evident in her voice. "I'll put you on speaker." The voice that came to the phone was calm, confident, and carried the hint of a Southern accent. "Congresswoman Crockett, this is Maria Santos. I'm a partner at Santos, Williams and Associates. I've been following your work on digital accountability, and I think it's time we had a conversation about Mr. Musk." Maria Santos wasn't just any lawyer. She was the attorney who had taken down 3 Fortune 500 companies for securities fraud, won a $2.3 billion judgment against a tech company for privacy violations, and had a reputation for going after powerful men who thought they were untouchable. More importantly, she had been tracking Elon Musk's business practices for 2 years. "Congresswoman," Santos continued, "I've been waiting for someone like you, someone with a platform and the courage to stand up to Musk, because I have something he really doesn't want the public to see." The room fell silent. Crockett's staff looked at each other with a mixture of hope and disbelief. "What kind of something?" Crockett asked. "The kind that could end his empire," Santos replied. "SEC violations, tax evasion schemes, and evidence of market manipulation that would make your Digital Accountability Act look like a gentle suggestion. The question is, are you ready to go to war?" By 2 p.m., Musk had escalated again. His latest tweet included what appeared to be a bank statement with Crockett's name on it. Clearly fabricated, but convincing enough to fool his followers. "The corruption runs deeper than we thought," he wrote. "How does a congresswoman afford a $2.5 million house on a government salary? The American people deserve answers." The fake document spread like wildfire. Within hours, it had been shared 50,000 times. News outlets were scrambling to verify its authenticity, but the damage was already being done. Crockett was being painted as corrupt without a shred of real evidence. Her office phones were now ringing with death threats. Online harassment had reached a point where her family members were being targeted. Her daughter's college had to increase security after threatening messages appeared on her social media. This was Musk's playbook. Create chaos, spread doubt, and use his massive platform to destroy anyone who dared challenge him. It had worked before against journalists, whistleblowers, and smaller politicians who couldn't fight back. But at 4:47 p.m., everything changed. Maria Santos walked into a law office in downtown D.C., sat down in front of camera, and began recording a video that would flip the entire narrative upside down. The video was simple. Santos sitting at a desk, professional but direct, looking straight into the camera. Behind her were boxes of documents, binders full of evidence, and a wall covered with what looked like financial charts and timeline graphs. "My name is Maria Santos," she began, "and I represent Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Mr. Musk, you made a big mistake today. You threatened the wrong person with the wrong accusations. And now, it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." The video was uploaded to YouTube at exactly 5 p.m. Within minutes, it had thousands of views. Within an hour, it was trending. By evening, it would have over 1 million views and changed the entire trajectory of the fight. But that was just the beginning. What Santos revealed in that video would leave Elon Musk scrambling to control a narrative that was spiraling completely out of his control. Maria Santos looked directly into the camera, her voice steady and confident. The lawyer who had taken down corporate giants was about to deliver the most devastating legal response in recent political history. "Mr. Musk," she continued, You spent the last 12 hours threatening Congresswoman Crockett with fabricated evidence and encouraging harassment campaigns against her and her family. You seem to believe that your wealth and platform make you untouchable. Today, you're going to learn otherwise. Santos reached for the first binder behind her. Let's start with your recent claims about offshore accounts and questionable finances. It's interesting that you would make such accusations, considering your own financial arrangements. The screen behind Santos lit up with a document that made viewers around the world pause their scrolling. It was an SEC filing, clearly marked with Tesla's letterhead and Musk's signature. This is from 2023, Santos explained. An SEC filing that shows how you moved $12.7 billion through offshore shell companies to avoid paying taxes on your Tesla stock sales. The same offshore arrangements you're now falsely accusing Congresswoman Crockett of using. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. Musk, who had been attacking Crockett for alleged offshore accounts, had been using actual offshore arrangements to avoid billions in taxes. But Santos wasn't done. She opened a second binder. Now, let's talk about market manipulation. You've tweeted accusations about Congresswoman Crockett's integrity. But what about your own integrity when it comes to manipulating stock prices? Another document appeared on screen, a timeline showing Musk's tweets alongside Tesla and Dogecoin price movements. This timeline shows 17 separate instances over the past 2 years where you tweeted specific statements that directly moved Tesla's stock price. In each case, you or your companies bought or sold shares within 48 hours of those tweets. The SEC considers this textbook market manipulation. Santos paused, letting the gravity of the accusation sink in. The total profit from these manipulated trades? $4.2 billion. Money that came directly from ordinary investors who trusted your public statements. By now, the video had exploded across social media. Hashtag MuskExposed was trending alongside hashtag Crockett Corruption, but the momentum was shifting dramatically. News outlets were scrambling to verify Santos's claims, and early reports suggested the documents were authentic. But the most devastating revelation was yet to come. Mr. Musk, Santos continued, you've built your public image on being a champion of free speech and transparency. But what happens when that image conflicts with your business interests? Santos opened a third binder, this one thicker than the others. These are internal communications from X, formerly Twitter, obtained through legal discovery in an ongoing federal case. They show a pattern of censorship and manipulation that directly contradicts your public statements about free speech. The documents that appeared on screen were damning. Email threads between Musk and ex-executives discussing shadow banning political accounts, artificially promoting certain narratives, and coordinating with specific political groups to influence elections. One email, sent from Musk's personal account, was particularly explosive. We need to reduce visibility on climate change activists and promote pro-business voices. Adjust the algorithm accordingly, and make sure it looks organic. Another email thread showed discussions about selling premium visibility to political campaigns, essentially allowing wealthy candidates to buy more reach for their messages. This is what free speech looks like under Elon Musk. Santos said, free for those who can pay for it, censor for those who can't. The legal expert took a sip of water and leaned forward. But here's what really matters for your threats against Congresswoman Crockett. You've been using X to harass and intimidate critics, including federal officials. This constitutes obstruction of justice and intimidation of a federal officer. Santos pulled out a printed transcript. This morning, you posted a fabricated bank statement with Congresswoman Crockett's name on it. We confirmed with the bank that this document is completely fake. You knowingly publish false information to damage a federal official's reputation. In legal terms, that's defamation, harassment, and potentially sedition. The room where Santos sat seemed to grow quieter as she delivered the knockout punch. Mr. Musk, you've made 3 critical mistakes today. First, you targeted someone who isn't afraid of bullies. Second, you used fabricated evidence, which gives us grounds for criminal charges. And third, you picked a fight with someone who has access to the best legal representation in the country. Santos stood up, her voice growing stronger. So here's what's going to happen. You have 24 hours to issue a full public apology to Congresswoman Crockett, Admit that your financial accusations were false, and commit to ending the harassment campaign against her and her family. She walked closer to the camera. If you refuse, we will file criminal charges for defamation, harassment, and obstruction of justice. We will file civil suits for damages caused by your harassment campaign. And we will provide all of this evidence to the SEC, the IRS, and the Department of Justice for investigation. Santos paused, her eyes never leaving the camera. But here's the real consequence, Mr. Musk. Every piece of evidence I've shown today will be released to the public. Every offshore arrangement, every market manipulation scheme, every censorship email. The American people will see exactly who you really are. The video ended with Santos sitting back down at her desk, surrounded by binders of evidence. The choice is yours, Mr. Musk, but choose quickly, because the clock is ticking and my client isn't backing down. Within minutes of the video being posted, the internet exploded. The hashtag #MuskExposed shot to #1 worldwide. News outlets that had been covering Musk's attacks on Crockett suddenly had a much bigger story. Potential criminal behavior by one of the world's most powerful men. At X headquarters in San Francisco, emergency meetings were called. Musk's legal team scrambled to assess the damage. Public relations experts tried to craft responses to Santos's devastating revelations. But at 6:23 p.m., just over an hour after Santos's video went live, something unprecedented happened. Elon Musk, the man who never backed down from a fight, posted a very different kind of tweet. There seems to be some misunderstanding about my earlier post regarding Congresswoman Crockett. I believe in constructive dialogue and will be reaching out to resolve this privately. It was a beginning of a retreat that would become a complete surrender. By 8 p.m., Musk had deleted his original threatening tweets. His followers noticed immediately, sparking thousands of screenshots and memes about the world's richest man running scared. Hashtag Elon Deletes began trending as users documented his attempt to cover his tracks. But the damage was done. Santos's evidence was spreading faster than Musk could control. Financial experts on CNN were analyzing the offshore arrangements. Former SEC officials were calling for immediate investigations. Even Tesla's stock price was beginning to drop as investors worried about the market manipulation allegations. At 9:47 p.m., Musk's phone rang. It was his lead attorney, calling with news that would complete his humiliation. Elon, the lawyer said, I've reviewed the evidence Santos presented. It's all authentic. If she files charges, we can't win. If the SEC investigates, we're looking at billions in fines. If the DOJ gets involved, we're looking at potential criminal charges. There was a long pause. What do you recommend? Musk asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Apologize immediately and pray that Santos and Crockett are willing to accept it. At 11:43 p.m., just 8 hours after Maria Santos had posted her devastating video response, Elon Musk published the most humiliating thread of his entire career. The man who had started the day threatening a congresswoman ended it begging for forgiveness. I want to sincerely apologize to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. His first tweet read, My earlier posts contained inaccurate information and were inappropriate. I respect her service to the American people and her right to pursue legislation she believes in. The second tweet was even more damaging to his image. I am committed to ensuring that X remains a platform for constructive dialogue, not personal attacks on public servants. I will be implementing new policies to prevent the spread of fabricated documents and coordinating with my legal team to address any concerns. The third tweet completed a surrender. I look forward to working constructively with Congress on digital platform accountability and transparency. The American people deserve better from all of us, myself included. But the most telling sign of Musk's panic came in a fourth tweet, posted just minutes later. I've asked my team to cooperate fully with any investigations and provide transparency in our platform operations. Within hours, screenshots of Musk's apology thread have been shared millions of times. The hashtag #MustSurrender trended worldwide, with users posting memes and jokes about the world's richest man running scared from a Texas lawyer. The political implications were immediate and far-reaching. By morning, Congresswoman Crockett had become a hero to her Democratic colleagues. Nancy Pelosi tweeted, When billionaires try to intimidate public servants, we stand together. Jasmine Crockett showed incredible courage in standing up to corporate bullying. Even some Republicans, who had initially jumped on Musk's bandwagon, were now distancing themselves. Senator Susan Collins issued a statement. While I don't agree with all of Congresswoman Crockett's positions, using fabricated documents to attack sitting members of Congress is unacceptable regardless of party. The most significant political impact came from Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, who announced that Congress will be holding emergency hearings on digital platform accountability and the influence of tech billionaires on democratic institutions. Crockett's Digital Accountability Act, which had seemed dead in the water just 24 hours earlier, was suddenly gaining bipartisan support. Despite Musk's apology, Maria Santos wasn't finished. At a press conference the next morning, she announced that her legal team would still be filing complaints with federal agencies. An apology doesn't erase criminal behavior, Santos declared, standing next to Congresswoman Crockett outside the Capitol building. We will be providing all evidence to the Securities and Exchange Commission regarding market manipulation, to the Internal Revenue Service regarding tax evasion schemes, and to the Department of Justice regarding obstruction of justice and intimidation of federal officials. Santos also revealed that 3 other members of Congress had contacted her office with similar stories of harassment and intimidation by Musk. This wasn't an isolated incident, she explained. This was part of a pattern of using wealth and platform power to silence Democratic opposition. The legal filing sent shockwaves through the business world. Tesla's stock dropped 12% in pre-market trading. SpaceX faced questions about its federal contracts. Even Neuralink and other Musk ventures saw investment pullbacks as the scope of potential legal consequences became clear. Within 72 hours of Santos' video, the Securities and Exchange Commission announced a formal investigation into Musk's trading patterns and social media activities. The investigation would focus on the 17 instances of potential market manipulation that Santos had documented. SEC Chairperson Gary Gensler issued a rare public statement. No individual, regardless of wealth or influence, is above securities law. The Commission will thoroughly investigate any evidence of market manipulation or fraudulent activity. The announcement sent Tesla's stock into free fall. Musk lost over $30 billion in net worth in a single week, the largest personal financial loss in modern history. Investors were fleeing anything connected to Musk's empire, worried about regulatory crackdowns and potential criminal charges. Perhaps the most significant long-term impact was on the media landscape itself. Santos' strategic use of evidence, social media, and public pressure had created a new template for taking on powerful figures who seemed untouchable. Major news outlets began dedicating entire investigative teams to tech billionaires and their business practices. The Washington Post launched a digital democracy initiative to investigate the influence of social media platforms on elections. CNN created a new show called Power and Accountability, focused entirely on holding tech giants responsible for their actions. More importantly, other lawyers began coming forward with evidence against tech giants who had previously seemed untouchable. Santos' success inspired a wave of legal challenges against big tech companies, creating what legal experts call the accountability revolution. The Musk-Crockett battle didn't stay confined to American politics. European Union regulators, who had been considering stronger regulations on American tech companies, pointed to the incident as evidence that self-regulation wasn't working. The European Commission announced accelerated timelines for new regulations on social media platforms and tech company transparency. Several EU countries began discussing Musk laws, regulations specifically designed to prevent tech billionaires from using their platforms to influence democratic processes. China's state media used the incident to criticize American tech oligarchy, while Democratic allies like Canada and Australia began drafting their own digital accountability legislation modeled on Crockett's proposed act. For Congresswoman Crockett, the victory was transformational. She went from being a relatively unknown representative to one of the most powerful voices in Congress virtually overnight. Her Digital Accountability Act, which had seemed impossible to pass just a week earlier, suddenly had 67 co-sponsors in the House and growing support in the Senate. Tech policy experts who had previously dismissed her as too aggressive were now calling her visionary. More importantly, Crockett had proven that individual politicians could still stand up to corporate power if they had the courage to fight and the right legal support. In an interview with 60 Minutes 2 weeks after the confrontation, Crockett reflected on the battle. This was never about me versus Elon Musk. This was about whether we're going to let billionaires control our democratic institutions or whether we're going to fight back. Maria Santos gave me the weapons I needed to fight back, and the American people rallied behind the truth. For Maria Santos, the victory established her as the most feared corporate attorney in America. Her law firm received over 200 new case inquiries in the week following the Musk confrontation, including potential cases against Amazon, Meta, Google, and other tech giants. Santos announced the creation of the Democratic Accountability Fund, a legal initiative specifically designed to support politicians and activists facing intimidation from wealthy corporations. The fund raised $15 million in its first month, funded entirely by small donations from Americans who had watched her take down Musk. This is just the beginning, Santos announced at a legal conference in Chicago. For too long, wealthy individuals and corporations have used the legal system to intimidate and silence opposition. We're going to flip that script and use the legal system to hold them accountable. For Musk, the humiliation continued long after his initial apology. The SEC investigation expanded to include potential securities fraud related to his Neuralink and Boring Company ventures. The IRS launched its own investigation into his offshore arrangements, potentially seeking billions in back taxes and penalties. Most damaging was a revelation of internal excommunications showing systematic censorship and manipulation. Advertiser boycotts resumed with a vengeance, and X's revenue dropped by 60% in the quarter following the Crockett incident. Musk's attempts to rebuild his image fell flat. A carefully orchestrated apology tour on podcasts and news shows only reminded audiences of his threats against Crockett. His public appearances became increasingly erratic as the legal pressure mounted. By the 6-month mark, Musk had settled with the SEC for $8.7 billion, the largest individual settlement in SEC history. He agreed to step down from operational roles at Tesla and SpaceX for 2 years and submit all social media posts to legal review before publication. The Musk-Crockett confrontation became a watershed moment in American politics. It proved that tech billionaires weren't as untouchable as they seemed, and that strategic legal action could hold them accountable. Congress passed a modified version of Crockett's Digital Accountability Act within 6 months. The law required social media platforms to disclose algorithmic changes, prohibited the use of platforms for harassment campaigns against public officials, and established severe penalties for knowingly spreading fabricated information. Other tech giants, watching Musk's downfall, began proactively working with regulators rather than fighting them. Meta announced new transparency measures. Google committed to algorithm audits. Even Amazon agreed to stronger worker protection standards to avoid becoming the next target of accountability advocates. Perhaps most importantly, the confrontation changed the relationship between wealth and political power in America. For the first time in decades, a billionaire had faced real consequences for attempting to intimidate democratic institutions. Young politicians across the country began running campaigns specifically focused on tech accountability. The Crockett model, combining fearless advocacy with expert legal support, became a template for challenging corporate power. Voter attitudes shifted dramatically. Polling showed that 73% of Americans now supported stronger regulations on tech companies, compared to 41% before the Musk incident. The idea that billionaires should face the same legal standards as everyone else was no longer controversial. It was mainstream. As we wrap up this incredible story of David versus Goliath, one question remains. Who will be the next tech giant to face the accountability revolution that Maria Santos and Jasmine Crockett started? Santos' law firm has already announced investigations into several major tech companies. Crockett is working on follow-up legislation targeting corporate political influence. And across America, politicians are finding the courage to stand up to corporate bullies who once seemed untouchable. The lesson is clear. In a democracy, no one, not even the world's richest man, is above the law. When ordinary citizens have the courage to fight back and the right legal support, even the most powerful bullies can be brought to justice. What did you think of this incredible showdown? Do you believe more politicians should follow Jasmine Crockett's example and stand up to tech billionaires? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the latest stories of accountability and justice that are reshaping American politics. The age of unchecked tech power is ending. The age of democratic accountability has begun. And it all started with one congresswoman who refused to be intimidated and one lawyer who was ready for the fight of her career. Thanks for watching this incredible story of courage defeating corruption. Hit that subscribe button now, because the accountability revolution is just getting started, and you won't want to miss what happens next.